This is the Minuteman statue presentation by Charles Dooley. So here is a image of the statue and kind of its surroundings. You can see the statue is mounted on sort of a rock structure with a nice plaque attached to it that kind of explains what it is and the historical importance of it to Westport and the area. And it's got a little landscaping with a nice fence around it. So obviously you can tell it's a valued monument in the town and the area. So the location, the statue is located in Westport, Connecticut. Specifically, it is at the intersection of Campo Road South and Campo Beach Road. So you can see it's kind of right smack dab in the middle of a three-way intersection, which we'll be able to see in an above image in a few slides. So here's an overall view of where it is. You can see the little red circle in the bottom left. And that large river right to the left of it is the Saugatuck River. And so this kind of, you can see a feel of where exactly it is, right on the shore, right at Cedar Point. And you can see it's where it is in regards to the town of Westport and Fairfield. So a little closer, you can see a little sliver of the Saugatuck River in the top left. And Gray's Creek is right next to it, and you can see Hall Island right there in Cedar Point, as well as Campo Beach Skate Park right above Cedar Point. And actually right next to it is the Longshore Golf Club. So a little closer, you could see that it's right in the middle of the three-way intersection. It's right next to the golf course in Gray's Creek with a bunch of nice houses around it. So construction of the statue, it was designed and built by Harry Daniel Webster, who lived from 1880 to 1912. The statue was first opened to the public on June 17th, 1910. The statue was first modeled in clay by Webster, and then was casted in bronze by Tiffany & Co. And the statue was opened, coincidentally, on the 135th anniversary of the Battle of Bunker Hill. So who was Harry Daniel Webster? He was born in 1880 in Frankville, Iowa, and he ended up spending much of his childhood and a little into his adolescent life in Rowena, South Dakota. So we don't really know a whole lot about him, but what we do know is that he advocated for saving school lands in support of education. So through that, he was sort of beloved by his people and by his community. So he would oftentimes get pennies from kids, and that was a small chunk out of the funding for his materials and his workplaces, but he got a lot of funding from his town, and he was given workspaces and the materials needed to do so to produce his work. And here is a better picture of him working on a bust of a lady who, I'm not sure quite exactly who it is, but you could see kind of what exactly he looked like. So a little history of the location. The statue is located in the exact spot of the fiercest engagement between British and American militias, which occurred on April 28, 1777. The statue honors the heroism of the patriots who defended the country when the British invaded Campo Beach. The 2 days prior to this, conflict had occurred with battles at Danbury as well as Ridgefield. So at this time in the late 1770s, the American Revolutionary War was going on with Britain. So here's kind of a timeline of it. Early on, you could see the Stamp Act and the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party. And then closer to the event, just a year before, the Declaration of Independence was signed. And then a few years later, the Articles of Confederation were passed. More about the British invasion. So 2,000 troops in 26 warships landed at Campo Beach, and they were led by Major General William Tryon. Their plan originally, so they were actually met by guides who were under the British Crown. So they were met by these people, and they led them up to Campo Road to Cross Highway, then across to Reading Road, and then north through Reading and Bethel to Danbury, where they planned to burn a major munitions depot, which was a big spot for Connecticut and the East Coast. So the battle on April 28th occurred after the British troops had ravaged Danbury and Ridgefield, which we will get into in a few slides. And here is a picture of the British arriving. This is at Cedar Point. So you can see the 26 warships and the 2,000 men, and you can see General Tryon right there leading them. So the British invasion of Danbury, this happened on April 26th, a day after they had arrived. The British had arrived. So unlike Campo Beach, the British ravaged Danbury. So I forgot to mention that when the British arrived, they were not opposed by any American militias or anybody, because it would have been a lost cause trying to fight them, because they had the strength in numbers and they had the guides who were helping them, so any attack would not have worked. So they kind of easily marched their way to Danbury, where they burned 19 homes, 22 stores and barns, as well as destroyed and burned printing presses. They took food, clothing, medical equipment, and burned over 1,500 tents. So the British troops, after this outing, had successfully completed phase 1 of their invasion and were now onto Ridgefield. So here's an image of it. I'm not sure how easy you could tell, but it was a very one-sided affair in the favor of British troops, because they were well equipped for this and had it planned out. So then at the Battle of Ridgefield on April 27th, 1777, British troops were traveling south back to Campo Beach, where they encountered 700 armed Patriot fighters. So these 700 Patriot fighters were led by Generals Benedict Arnold and Goldschellick Silliman. Americans were still outnumbered 3-1, but they had reinforcements on the way, which then, after a small skirmish, Tryon, who acknowledged the fact that many reinforcements were on the way and they were already kind of losing, he made a tactical decision to relocate his troops back to the shoreline. So here's a blurry image of a blurry painting of the Battle of Ridgefield. Kind of mutual fight. So the Battle of Campo Hill. General Arnold attempted to intercept General Tryon's troops at Kings Highway Bridge so when Tryon led his troops, or attempted to lead them back to Campo Beach and the shoreline, General Arnold came up with a plan to meet them kind of in the middle at Kings Highway Bridge. But this plan had actually failed, so then Arnold repositioned his troops at Campo Hill, which is where where the event happened. So this ultimately forced the British troops to have to fight their way back to the ships instead of just a free march there. And in the end, there was over 200 British casualties, and Americans had only 50 to 60 casualties, with only 20 deaths. So here's a kind of an overview of Britain's plan. They land at Cedar Point, and then they move north up to Danbury, which is the Red Sea up top. That is Danbury. And then they move a little south to Ridgefield, and the blue, I believe, represents the American troops as they intercepted them up there before the battle at Campo Hill. So the Minuteman's importance today. So it is now the silhouette of the town flag, which you can see to the right, and that's actually the exact picture, or the exact, that's a better one. It's an exact silhouette of the statue itself. And it has kind of become the symbol of Westport, which is become the symbol, as many people of Westport have given it that. And in 2010, Alan Raymond, a town historian, declared that the Minuteman is Westport's equivalent to Americans' Lincoln Monument, which is, it's a big comparison, but it's a good comparison, I think, at large scale, but I think it makes a lot of sense. So that is my project.